Minimalism is about using our resources deliberately. Time, attention, money, skills.
Not everyone has that privilege to go pack up their things or get rid of things and move somewhere else.
All those things that you bring up, it's really about how do I use my privilege to like really lift up the people around me and in my community. And
I mean, just off the back of the fact that you said money can solve problems, I'm gonna push back and give a little bit of a critique of minimalism that maybe Ollie and I were discussing before we conducted this interview and as we were preparing for it. To what extent do you think that minimalism is some luxury of maybe of the middle class? So a way of like aesthetically justifying a privilege that is there, right? So economic privilege that one has while distancing oneself from maybe more systematic inequality. If you see what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it makes sense. So are you talking about the aesthetics of minimalism?
Partly aesthetic, but also maybe from a moral aspect. Not everyone has that privilege to go pack up their things or get rid of things and move somewhere else. So I saw in your 2015 documentary, a lot of the places where people were moving into still required some sort of kind of financial capital. You still needed to, some people, for example, I think the point I'm trying to get at is that some people having less is not voluntary, but a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about poor versus voluntarily living a life aesthetically, especially the people in our documentary who like aesthetically were going after minimalistic places in very expensive cities.
Exactly.
I think that the people in our documentary are I think it's not the exception, but to use those two people as all minimalists, I don't think is fair. But what I do think is fair is that we talk about the luxury or the privilege, and it is a privilege to decide to spend less money. So we can talk about that for sure. So with poor people who are, on food stamps and welfare, I mean, kids who grew up like me and Josh, I know very much what it means. It's to live paycheck to paycheck or to live like, in debt, meaning like before you even have a chance to spend your paycheck, it's gone, Yeah, I mean, minimalism is about using our resources deliberately. So that is what minimalism is. Time, attention, money, skills, right? To tell anyone, to say that, to exclude anyone from that, I can't do that. I would never do that. Poor or rich. I would never say, hey, I know you don't have any money, so you can't. I mean, if anything, they would be the ones who would benefit from it the most, who would be using their resources more deliberately. So what does that mean, though, in a poor situation? Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think first and foremost, it does mean staying out of debt as much as possible. When we were poor, it was not possible, at least through my eyes and through my lens, to stay out of debt. I would say I did see some really bad decisions being made, and probably, I'm going to take that back. Maybe we could have stayed out of debt because I did see a lot of bad decisions being made, but I'm not trying to overarching say that like every single poor person has the ability to stay out of debt. Like I want to recognize what's real here, which is a lack of resources. So if one lacks resources with money, then this is where I think minimalism can help, because there are those other resources we do have. And I think, first and foremost, man, like if I could really, not just poor people, but anyone, if I could just really help them see how important community is and how important family is and how important it is, like no matter what anyone has done to you, to look at them and say, I know you're doing the best that you can. Like that's really, you don't need money to do that. You don't need money to go and find a good community. You don't need money to go over to your neighbor and be like, hey, I got some free time today. What are you doing? What do you need? What can I help you with? Like, it does not take money to do these things.
You don't need money for community. You don't need money for friendship. You don't need money for all these things. I agree. And yet what's interesting for me is that that's almost something that actually has to be said, right? I think in a past time, it would be pretty obvious, right? And I think the development of the idea that money is this most important thing, and, you know, it's a slightly jokey trope, but people say, oh, I don't want a relationship. I just want to focus on money, you know, things like that, right? Money is seen as really central. And for me,
money is power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry, keep going. Yeah.
No worries. For me, that's really part and parcel of kind of the development of late stage capitalism and this increasing focus on profit. I mean, a lot of the things we're buying, right, and being told to buy are get the new iPhone, get the new this. It's marketed to us, right? This desire for money more and more is artificially created to a certain extent. And so I guess my question would be why, or if you disagree, why minimalism doesn't intersect with that political aspect and doesn't talk about systemic reasons that people focus on money and focus on possessions, for example.
I hate telling people what to do, man. I mean, I really am trying to get out of the advice business because it's not about, at first I thought, oh, hey, here's what I did to live. And so I'm going to share it with you and maybe you can do this to live. And it still is like that to an extent with maybe, you know, people learn from stories, right? And people can take out certain ingredients. But when it comes to these head-on conversations, man, it's like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have all the answers. I had the answers for me. And I have the answers that have helped me to really not, to not let fear keep me from seeing what's happening right now with us and with this conversation. And with all of those systemic things, which are very fearful and they're very real. It's like I'm a white privileged dude in America. So for me to complain about anything would be very, it just, you know, ostensibly sounds kind of stuck up, right? And I recognize this. So all those things that you bring up, it's really about how do I use my privilege each day to like really lift up the people around me and in my community. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you every $5 bill I've handed a homeless person or whatever. Like, I'm not going to sit here and like pat myself on the back, but these are the things I do each day. These are not, I will talk about these concepts. I just did, but I will not list out, you know, here's all the good things I do each day for this, for systemic society. I'll tell you one story that's really kind of sweet. I was back home for my brother's funeral. We're at a grocery store and there's these two little girls and we're like, my sister lives downtown Cincinnati. It's, whatever. It's a downtown area, right? It's like, it's very diverse and very, bars on the window, you know, they will not let these little girls in to get their, get their snacks because they don't have a parent with them. And so I'm like, Mariah, like, I'm going to go see if I can help these girls out. So my wife's like, okay, no problem. So I go and I talk to them. What's going on? They won't let a parent. I talk to the security guard. Can they walk with me? No, they need a parent. I'm like, all right, girls, what do you need? And so they just started listing stuff off, dude. I mean, but like I do that shit all the time, dude, all the time. Mm-hmm. And that is what I want other people to do. It's not to go buy a shopping list for two little girls, but I would really love for people to, yes, like next time you think about, man, my life would be so much better if I had $100. I guarantee your life would be so much better if you went and hugged your neighbor too. You know, it's not gonna give you the same thing $100 is gonna give you, but there are other resources. There are other things we can do than rely on money. But again, it does seem like such an easy answer, and it is in a lot of ways. Because the thing is like, bring me someone who has zero money. Bring me a homeless person, right? Money is going to really help them. Like that is something that I think we can all agree on. Like there's a basic necessity and even some luxuries, you know, hot water is a luxury, but man, damn, I don't want people to go without that. So it's like, there is a certain level in which money will provide the necessities that we need. And maybe that's the trap, is because it does work up to a certain point. And then we keep trying the same thing. Once we have those basic necessities meet and we're like, well, it worked the first 60 grand I make. I know that's how it was for me. I'm like, if I could just make $50,000 a year, oh man. And then like, I started making 50 grand a year. I'm like, you know what? That 50 grand, that was like, I came up with that idea a couple years ago. I forgot to adjust for inflation. Now it's 90,000, now it's six figures, or maybe it's owning a bunch of stuff. It's like, just because we have a solution for one thing doesn't mean it's going to work for all the other solutions. A hammer works great for pounding nails. That's it. And prying them up. But it's like, you could also take that hammer and, demolish a wall with it too. It's like, it's all in how you use that tool. But if you use that tool in the same way for every situation, then it's not going to work. Growing up poor, and my stepfather, he was very abusive, man. He used to beat the crap out of me. Those childhood experiences and traumas certainly start to shape kind of what we're living for. Minimalism is about using our resources deliberately. With minimalism, I can look at the things in my life. I can look at where I'm putting my resources, not just my money, but like my time, my attention, my skills, my creativity. Love people and use things, because the opposite will never work.